Some vehicles are built to be noticed, but the one you're about to experience exists in a completely different category. This is not about speed figures or spec sheet comparisons. This is about presence, about a machine that doesn't compete for attention because it already owns the space around it. In a world where luxury is often loud and over-explained, this vehicle takes a different approach. It remains composed, deliberate, and quietly dominant, and that is exactly what makes it unforgettable. In the next few minutes, you're going to understand what truly separates ordinary luxury SUVs from something that feels engineered with intention at every level. From its commanding exterior design to a cabin that redefines comfort to performance that delivers power without ever needing to prove it. This is not just a review, it's a closer look at what happens when refinement becomes the priority. Before we go further, take a moment to subscribe to the channel and tap the bell icon so you never miss content that breaks down machines like this with clarity and depth. Now let's begin where this vehicle makes its first statement, at the rear. The moment you see the back of the LX1000, you realize this is not a design trying to impress. It's a design that simply exists with authority. That full-width horizontal light bar stretches across the entire tailgate in one uninterrupted red line, and it does more than illuminate. It defines the identity of the vehicle. It turns what would normally be just another SUV silhouette into something that feels architectural, almost like a single cohesive structure rather than separate components assembled together. Beneath that, the quad exhaust outlets, 2 on each side, are positioned with precision, framing a diffuser that carries subtle carbon-look vertical fins. Nothing here feels excessive, and yet everything communicates strength. It's not aggressive in a loud way. It's controlled, intentional, and confident. Even the rear spoiler sits low and purposeful above the glass, not trying to dominate the design, but completing it. And right at the center of the tailgate, the Lexus badge is placed without apology because it doesn't need justification. What stands out most is how this vehicle feels in motion, even when it's completely still. There's a sense of forward energy built into its design, like it's already moving before the engine even starts. Then you move toward the front, and this is where things become even more interesting. Lexus has managed to do something very few manufacturers can achieve. They've created a design that feels aggressive but never chaotic. The spindle grille here has evolved into something far more intricate than anything seen on the standard LX lineup. The diamond mesh pattern isn't just there for styling. It adds depth, texture, and a sense of precision that draws your attention without overwhelming it. On either side, those sharp, boomerang-shaped headlights extend back into the hood line with a kind of surgical accuracy. They don't just sit on the surface, they integrate into the structure of the vehicle itself. Below them, the lower fascia opens up with angular intakes, giving the front end a wider, more grounded stance. Subtle chrome accents trace along the edges, like refined details on a tailored suit, small but impossible to ignore once you notice them. And then there are the wheels. Multi-spoke, finished in a dark tone, filling the arches completely. Combined with the wide, planted stance, they communicate one thing clearly. This vehicle isn't trying to look powerful. It simply is. What you're seeing here is not borrowed identity. It's not branding trying to convince you of something. It's a design that reflects real authority, earned, not claimed. And that's just the beginning. What makes this presence even more convincing is how the body itself has been reworked. This is a wide-body interpretation that reshapes the entire stance of the vehicle. The proportions feel recalibrated, more deliberate, more grounded. It's not trying to appear larger than it is, it simply uses its size with precision. In midnight black, this SUV transforms depending on its environment. It's composed, controlled, and quietly dominant in any setting. Step inside, and the experience evolves. Every surface is wrapped in quilted leather, creating a unified visual language that ties the entire interior together. Carbon fiber adds a layer of technical refinement. The steering wheel feels precise, while the Lexus emblem at its center sits like a statement, confident and final. The instrument cluster glows with clarity. Everything is exactly where it should be, designed to maintain the overall balance of the cabin. This cabin wasn't designed in a hurry. It feels like a space that was tested and refined until nothing felt out of place. The LX1000 proves that someone spent time making sure this would feel right, not just look impressive. The LX1000 interior is a study in balance. From the supportive front seats to the integrated technology, every detail serves a purpose. The front seats are wide and supportive, designed to hold you naturally without feeling restrictive during long drives. Move into the rear, and the philosophy becomes clear. Personal space is the ultimate luxury. The second row captain seats are deeply contoured and wrapped in fine leather, offering a rare sense of personal space. Between the seats, a central console puts climate, audio, and comfort functions right at your fingertips. Adjustable rear screens transform long journeys, turning travel time into something you actually look forward to. Integrated technology works quietly in the background, anticipating your needs before you even think to ask. A head-up display projects essential data into your line of sight, keeping your focus where it belongs, on the road. Inside the LX1000, technology removes the need for distraction. It's not just a cabin, it's a complete environment. Beyond the quiet intelligence of its technology, what truly defines the LX1000 is how it moves. This is not performance that demands attention. It's performance that delivers results with absolute certainty. Beneath the surface, the twin-turbocharged V8 operates with a kind of restraint that feels almost deliberate, as if it understands that power does not need to be announced to be effective. Press the accelerator at motorway speeds, and the response is immediate, but not aggressive in a theatrical way. There's no sudden surge designed to impress. Instead, what you feel is a continuous, uninterrupted flow of momentum. The vehicle gathers speed with calm authority, building forward motion in a way that feels controlled, composed, and entirely predictable. It doesn't ask if you're ready, it simply delivers. The air suspension plays an equally important role in shaping this experience. It doesn't just react to the road, it anticipates it. Imperfections, undulations, subtle changes in surface texture, all of it is read and adjusted for before it fully reaches the cabin. What you feel as a driver or passenger is not the road itself, but a filtered interpretation of it. The harshness is removed, leaving behind only a sense of smooth, uninterrupted movement. And this is where the size of the LX1000 becomes almost irrelevant. On paper, this is a vehicle that weighs well over 2.5 tons. But from behind the wheel, it never feels cumbersome. When you need stability, it feels wide and planted, grounded to the road with confidence. When you need movement, it responds with surprising fluidity for something of its scale. There's a balance here that doesn't rely on tricks. It comes from careful engineering. The four-wheel drive system operates quietly in the background, constantly adjusting grip and distribution without drawing attention to itself. You don't notice it working, and that's exactly the point. Whether the road is dry, wet, or uneven, the LX1000 maintains its composure in a way that feels effortless. It's not reacting dramatically to conditions, it's simply managing them. Now imagine this in a real-world moment. It's late at night. The road ahead is empty, stretching forward into darkness. Inside the cabin, the ambient blue lighting creates a calm, controlled environment. It's not bright enough to distract, but just enough to remind you of the space you're in. The quilted leather beneath your hands feels cool, precise, and perfectly aligned. Every stitch exactly where it should be. The engine pulls quietly in the background. There's no loud exhaust note competing for attention, just a low, distant presence that reminds you of the power available without ever forcing it into the foreground. The scent of the leather lingers subtly, adding to the sense of refinement. Outside, the world is moving quickly. Streetlights pass in a steady rhythm, the road slipping away beneath you. But inside, everything feels still. The suspension absorbs every imperfection, smoothing out the surface so completely that the only sensation left is forward motion. Steady, uninterrupted, inevitable. This is where the LX1000 separates itself from conventional driving experiences. It doesn't feel like you're controlling a machine in constant motion, it feels like you're being carried. And behind all of this lies something that cannot be developed overnight. Lexus didn't arrive at this level of refinement through a single generation. This is the result of decades spent understanding what it actually means to finish a luxury vehicle, not just assemble one, but complete it. That philosophy is rooted in something deeper than design or engineering alone. It reflects a mindset, one that values anticipation over reaction, precision over excess, and consistency over shortcuts. And once you recognize that, it becomes clear why the LX1000 feels the way it does. That deeper philosophy is where the LX1000 begins to reveal something most vehicles never truly achieve. A sense of intention that runs through every detail, visible and invisible. Lexus has spent decades refining not just how a vehicle performs, but how it feels to live with. And that difference becomes clear the moment you start paying attention to the smallest things. The concept of omotenashi, a Japanese principle centered around anticipating needs before they are even expressed, is not presented here as a feature or a marketing line. It exists as a quiet foundation beneath everything you experience. You notice it in the way the quilted stitching aligns perfectly across surfaces, never breaking pattern from seat to door to dashboard. It's there in the choice of ambient lighting, soft blue selected not to impress but to calm. It's there in how every floor mat fits precisely into its space, not trimmed to approximate but shaped to belong. These are not decisions made for visibility. They are decisions made because someone believed they mattered. And that belief creates a clear separation when you begin to compare the LX1000 to other vehicles in the same price range. On paper, there are competitors that occupy a similar financial space, vehicles that offer luxury, performance, and presence. But when you place them side by side, the difference becomes less about specifications and more about execution. Take something like the Honda Legend SUV, for example. It competes in the same conversation externally. Similar size, similar ambition, similar positioning. But step closer, and the distinction begins to reveal itself without the need for explanation. The LX1000's spindle grille and full-width rear light bar operate on a level of design maturity that the Legend simply hasn't reached yet. It's not about which one is more aggressive or more modern, it's about which one feels resolved. Inside, that gap becomes even more apparent. The Legend delivers luxury as something you arrive at, a destination, something added onto the experience. The LX1000, on the other hand, treats luxury as its native language. It doesn't switch into a luxury mode. It exists in that state from the very beginning. Every material, every surface, every interaction reinforces that identity. And this is not something that can be replicated quickly. It cannot be engineered into a single generation or introduced through a mid-cycle update. It's the result of consistency, years of refining processes, understanding materials, and learning what truly matters over time. Lexus didn't learn how to build vehicles like this overnight. They've been speaking this language fluently long before others began trying to translate it. But honesty matters here because no vehicle is without its compromises, and the LX1000 is no exception. For all of its refinement, presence, and capability, this is still a large vehicle. Not just large in a general sense, but genuinely substantial in both width and length. And that has real-world implications. In tight urban environments, narrow streets, compact parking structures, congested city blocks designed in a different era, the LX1000 demands attention from its driver. It requires patience, it requires spatial awareness. This is not a vehicle you casually slip into small gaps or maneuver through tight spaces without thinking. There's a learning curve to its size, and not every driver will find that immediately comfortable. It asks you to be deliberate in how you move it, to understand its dimensions, and to respect the space it occupies. But even here, that same philosophy of refinement continues to play a role, because while the LX1000 may be physically large, it never feels careless. The visibility, the camera systems, the way the vehicle communicates its surroundings, all of it works to reduce that sense of intimidation. It doesn't eliminate the challenge entirely, but it transforms it into something manageable. And that's the key difference. The LX1000 doesn't pretend to be smaller than it is. It doesn't disguise its presence. Instead, it gives you the tools and the confidence to handle it properly. And once you come to terms with that size, once you understand how to place it on the road and how it responds to your inputs, the LX1000 begins to feel less like something you manage and more like something that works with you. Because what ultimately defines this vehicle is not a single feature or a single moment or even a single drive. It's the consistency of its behavior over time. The way it delivers the same calm, controlled experience regardless of where you take it, highway, city, uneven terrain. It doesn't change its identity to adapt. It simply extends it. On long motorway drives, that identity becomes especially clear. Hours pass without fatigue setting in the way it normally would. The seats continue to support without pressure. The cabin remains quiet without feeling isolated. And the suspension maintains that same composed filtering of the road beneath you. It's not about eliminating the journey, it's about refining it to the point where distance feels less significant. And then there's the off-road capability, which exists without needing to be advertised loudly. This is still, at its core, a vehicle built on a platform that understands terrain beyond paved roads. Engage the appropriate drive mode and the LX1000 adjusts itself without hesitation. Ride height, traction distribution, throttle response, all recalibrated in real time. There's no dramatic shift, no theatrical transformation, Just a quiet, confident change in how the vehicle approaches the ground beneath it. Gravel, mud, uneven surfaces. It handles them with the same composure it shows on asphalt. Not aggressively, not recklessly, but with controlled capability that feels dependable rather than impressive for the sake of it. And that distinction truly matters, because many vehicles in this segment try to present themselves as everything at once, luxurious, sporty, rugged, often leaning too heavily into one identity at the expense of another. The LX1000 avoids that entirely. It doesn't try to be everything loudly, it simply is everything, quietly. Even the way it isolates you from external noise reflects that philosophy. Wind, road, engine, all reduced to a level where they exist but never intrude. You're aware of motion, aware of speed, but never overwhelmed by it. It's a controlled environment, designed to keep your focus exactly where it should be. And over time, that creates something unusual. You stop thinking about the vehicle, not because it lacks character, but because it removes friction from the experience of using it. You're not constantly adjusting, compensating, or reacting. You're simply moving, smoothly, consistently, without interruption. That's a level of refinement that doesn't reveal itself immediately. It builds gradually, over hours, over days, over repeated use. And once you notice it, it becomes difficult to ignore. Because this is where the LX1000 separates itself from vehicles that are designed to impress in short moments. It's not built for a quick test drive or a brief encounter. It's built for ownership, for living with it, understanding it, and recognizing the depth of thought behind it over time. And that brings us to something important. In a market that often prioritizes visible features, larger screens, louder designs, more aggressive styling cues, the LX1000 takes a different path. It focuses on things that are harder to quantify, things like consistency, material quality, long-term comfort, and the subtle interactions that shape how a vehicle feels to use every day. These are not elements that dominate a specification sheet. They don't translate easily into numbers or comparisons, but they define the experience in ways that specifications never can. And that's why this vehicle feels different. It's not trying to win attention in a crowded space. It's not trying to convince you of its value through excess. Instead, it operates with a kind of quiet certainty, an understanding of what it is and what it is not. It is not a performance SUV designed to chase speed records. It is not a design experiment created to stand out through shock value. And it is not a vehicle that compromises its identity to follow trends. What it is something far more deliberate. It is a finished product, a vehicle that reflects years of refinement, not just in engineering but in philosophy. A machine that understands its purpose and executes it without distraction. A space that has been designed not just to be seen, but to be experienced, consistently, comfortably, and completely. And in that sense, the LX1000 doesn't redefine luxury by changing its meaning. It refines it by removing everything unnecessary. What remains is something rare, something composed, balanced, and complete, something that doesn't need to announce itself to be understood. And once you experience that, everything else starts to feel like it's trying too hard.